Okay, we are live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have a very special guest. Returning guest, his name is Dr. Hans Utter, last name spelled Uttr. And this will be episode 9 in our advanced Soviet research on cybernetics, biofield, energetics, and cognitive restructuring. And we are kind of coming to an end. We finished that long kind of paper, that research paper on Soviet research into these topics and just how unique that was. And that was paper was from 1972, and there's a little bit more to go through. So he has some slides he's prepping right now, but he can talk until those slides are ready to be
All
brought
right,
into the
this
show.
high tech. Yep, I
Yeah.
have
So
the. So for all that satellite up there that just fried out my little flash drive, you know
yeah.
what? I got another flash drive. I'm gonna keep going. You're not stopping me.
Right. Right.
No, I'm just. You have serendipity. It's just odd. Sometimes these technical issues, but don't. Occasionally things will happen. There, that are externally you get a virus. I mean, that's what I thought happened to me when my computer just went blank. It just boom, it's like a ghost. But anyways, it's just great to be here with you, William.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's great to have you back.
so this topic is actually this particular thing that we'll get into. um, we're only going to be able to kind of scratch the very surface of it. Okay,
Mm.
I have a lot of material that I'll just maybe kind of flow through a bit. It's something that when I discovered it, I encountered it. Um, it was one of the I don't know. It just really mind blowing. Like, but this is extremely complex. Okay, this is not something that it's not a thumbnail sketch. I mean, this basically what this is the application. You can think of all the stuff that we went through, all these technologies, and imagine that people at the highest levels, right, with knowledge of these, decide to apply this in a way for the overall benefit of society, and in fact, even not of the Soviet Union. So it's extremely dense, material, philosophically, but it's also very, very clear. Okay, it's very clear if you can grasp it. Um, there's no postmodern mumbo jumbo, right?
Right.
But it's it's radically different in terms of. I mean, it's one of those things like you read it, you start to get a grasp of it. It does expand your brain, your awareness, but it's applying. We're so used to seeing cybernetics in this sort of negative light, right?
Right.
But this is um, well, basically. So here's the mission statement of this thing. So basically, just as an overview, let me just go to the overview. So this in 1987, there was an initiative, just right before the fall of the Soviet Union. A very high level of people said we have to do something to arrest the collapse of our, society.
Civilization. Yeah.
So, but it's a holistic system of methodological knowledge, and it's a quote from the document I got here, which is a sufficient methodological basis for solving accumulated problems with the least collateral damage done in the transition period. This system is called the conception of social safety. So, this conception of social safety is based on um, the sufficiently general theory of governance, which means this applies from every single atom, cell in your body to the entire cosmos, to everything living, non-living, everything. So it's governance, meaning we have in cybernetics, right? But this is sufficiently general to encompass everything, the entire totality.
Wow.
So, um, but so this is so we're looking at and just going back in time, right? You have to see that these are, and I have some video clips of this general talking and stuff, and you can see where it's coming from. But they're looking at this, societal collapse, right? I mean, what happened in 1989? Larry Summers, the restructured Soviet Union. How many people? This was like a second, you know, um, red terror or something almost, economically, right? The level of suicide rates, the level of just absolute just starvation, completely
Alcoholism,
gutting
early. Yeah.
everything. They just sold everything off. Well, go ahead. You want to
No,
say
I was
something
just
about
going to
that?
say, like, the life expectancy of the Russians back then in the 80s or 90s was like 56 or something really low, 59. Like, they just didn't have anything. It's crazy. It's crazy to
Yeah,
think that that's the case.
yeah. So just to put this in context, like I said, so this is the um, the period when this was developed, and you have people, again in the one of the guys, he was in charge of the space program and the entire missile defense program and satellite program with like 4 PhDs. Okay, we're not talking like you know whatever even some maverick scientists. No, we're talking people and also that are dealing with that level, right? Whatever you may be or may not be, you're dealing with very, very massive systems that are extremely, these are not ideas. I mean, of course, there's ideas, but I mean, you're running, rocket ships and cosmonaut training. So a lot of the knowledge and all this stuff we covered, right? This was like a radical movement. And I say radical, but there was a book, I think it's called like Black Water, kind of a weird name, but this book goes through this conception. It was supposedly given to Putin, um, but
Wow,
the book
interesting.
was banned. It became illegal to own a copy of this book, but they created a political party. So they had a political party based on this platform. Um, which when I say though, why this material is so vast, it literally integrates everything from agriculture to environment to urban infrastructure to we go into human biofield stuff. I'll talk today about egregores, spiritual types of things are absolutely included in this. Okay, that's
Wow,
what makes it
interesting.
so interesting. um, but um, it is very Russian. Okay, it's certainly applicable to other cultures, but um, it's really when you see the mind, like seeing the research that we looked at, seeing people that had the ability to access to all this and integrate it, but within a radically, you can say a radically, they're trying to save, Russia, right? I mean, this was
Right.
not a minor, you know what I mean? Like this was like extreme urgency of,
Right.
but of course they're going against. I mean, it's you know, they're not dictating public policy. These are people at these high levels. So we got to do something. Let's come up with something. So that's what this came out of. Um, so 1987. And so it is very scientific, it's very rigorous, but it's also amazing when you start, they dissect all the behaviorism, they go through, there's all these books, they go through all the stuff that was done in the Soviet era, and you get lots of knowledge, but they also talk about how to come out of this, um
Hmm.
you know with and really talking. Well, let me just go through this document here, or this the little notes I took. Um, so, conception of social safety is a system of views on the world, which has its own terminological apparatus and its own philosophical basis. So, again, we're going to the point where we need to be careful, right? These are words, that it's very important, right? I mean, this is the reason I'm stating words are important. We have a lot of distortion of language, right? Gender studies, this, that, this postmodern stuff, and people throw words around, right? Even in the alternative media, people take certain concepts and just run with them, and without any, like, I remember that, what was it? During COVID, the crowd psychology, Gustav Le Bon, the madness of crowds,
Right.
influencing crowds. But then there was this, mass psychosis. Well, but it wasn't. It just became like a buzzword, or just there was a definition that came from, maybe a prominent purveyor of it, right? But
Right.
the terminology and the philosophy were not articulated to get. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so.
But look at that. I mean, how degraded our language has become, right?
Right. It's Orwellian, right? You degrade the language, you degrade people's understanding of things. So that's simple.
or you change the meaning of things, right?
Right.
What is it? I mean, equity. What does
Right.
equity mean?
What is yeah, what does fascism mean to some other people? They don't believe actually the textbook meaning of fascist. At least the left doesn't.
Well, no, I mean, we can. What's awesome is we can literally see the the way. So this is part of this. We got into all the stuff with the dialectic, which is again, it's an inversion of the actual Hegelian dialectic. Okay, so basically, for Hegel, sorry, been a long day here, but for Hegel, the the entire everything, human society, all these eras, the dialectic was moving towards basically God becoming conscious in the entire world. So it was a process of evolution, not necessarily individual, right? But the
Sure.
dialectic was moving to this sort of higher order. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But also the belief that the rational mind can become the same as God, right? So the human intellect, if it reaches that highest level, is not distinguished from the mind of God. Partially, so that's the part of the Hegelian thing. Marxist thing, you look at that, you think of the seal of Solomon, your 6-pointed star. You got the downward. So with Marxism, there is nothing transcendent. It's only material. It's only processes and forces of nature. Once you remove cause and effect, once you remove anything is possible. There is no reality except the action of force towards the goal with those that have this knowledge, right? Or, you know what I mean? It's the
I think so.
instantiation of
Yeah.
power and force, but power and force, ideological power and force can be just as powerful, if not more, right? Your
Right.
ideology, the use of how you affect the cognitive processes. So, anyways, so we see, like, so say white extremist, male white right wing extremist, white male extremist, right wing. See how the boundaries of this used to be pretty specific, right? You're talking about dudes with like lots of guns, living up in South Dakota. Now it can be applied to anybody, right? It can be applied in a very broad spectrum, right? I mean, it's being applied, like a Trump, support Trump, or if you have a certain viewpoint. I mean, literally, or right wing extremists, right? Is like if you think that you shouldn't force people to get vaccinated. Oh, right wing extremists. This is just a term, right? It's an expandable bubble, right? The meaning, the boundaries of this term, which I think we all know what an Islamic extremist is. Okay,
Sure. I think
or
so.
we know, and we probably know what a right wing extremist is. But in there, I think it's not that mysterious, right? I mean, if you got a bunch of guns and weapons, or you're just super hardcore in something, and with whatever you call it, like a will to power type of ethos, okay, but you don't just apply that to anything. So this is how the language, it means nothing anymore, right? Hate. What is hate? What is safe space, right? All this stuff. Oh, identity. Anyways,
Right.
so so this again, conception of social safety, through consideration of the evolution of the biosphere and humanity. So the biosphere, so they're taking. We talked about the bioenergetic field. One thing that's really cool about this is the biosphere is inclusive, everything, like the whole living Earth,
Right.
right?
It's just
So,
another synonym for other Earth or Gaia or something.
but it's everything living, right? So the bio,
Mhm.
and looking at it, the living thing. Okay. Um, and humanity, the global historical process, economics, philosophy, sociology, the CSS through the theory of governance came to an understanding of the processes occurring in the modern world, the origins of the global systemic crisis on planet Earth, and demonstrate the ways of withdrawal of all mankind, including each individual person, from these processes along the path of crisis-free harmonious development in consonance with the laws of the universe, with the biosphere, and with nature. The main work on CSS, that's conception of social safety, by a collection of authors who took the collaborative name Internal Predictor of the USSR. Um, so the eternal predictor of the USSR, really interesting. Uh, and well, we can just hit some of this material. But what's really, I mean, they're taking like it's I mean they talk about like New World Order stuff. They talk about it's it's
It's
you know
eschatological almost, right? Like you're talking about final change or final upgrade of the human condition or something.
but also just individually, right? So it goes into very detailed things about yourself, about how to governance of the human being, how you move through yourself. So we can just hit some of these slides. Is there a way to rotate that, or should I?
Well, there's this one. This
I
one,
think they all came out sideways. I don't
yeah,
know
you're
why
gonna
they're.
have to rotate it and come in this sideways too.
So this is so these are lectures, and so these were uh,
Раз есть и в государствах.
As a follow-up to the
um,
previous lecture, let us formulate the dangers that society faces. In the picture, we see that the dangers can be of a military nature, weapons of destruction, the dangers of destroying the gene pool, that is, everything related to health, which is a question of the reproduction of generations. This also includes all kinds of food additives, food safety, cosmetics, and so on. An economic danger is first of all usury, loan interest, as a means of a structuralist method of governance over countries and nations. A technological danger is a technology for fooling people around, manipulation of consciousness, and not only consciousness.
so basically these were recorded in the early '90s when the political party came out, and these were like CD-ROMs or whatever, or VHS cassettes that were passed out. They were distributed by this group. So these were, again, these were not, they were sort of um, underground, or well, they were promoted. They were sent out to all kinds of people, high level government, whatever, media, etc. So this is one of the guys, one of the main people. He passed away, and I think the political party kind of faded after that. But so anyway, so you have the English voiceover, so let's just continue. Just you guys get a feel for this. Here we go.
But also technical means that can harm the development of mankind. Technological dangers include religions, ideologies, systems, teachings, cults, and the list goes on and on. By the way, we are now adopting a law on extremism. What is extremism? Nobody gives an exact definition. Like there is something there, somewhere over there, when someone, that is, there is no clear measure of understanding. They do not endow it with a clear measure of understanding. But if we consider it from the standpoint of the conception of social safety, then Isaiah's Deuteronomy is definitely such an act of extremism. And thou shalt reign over many nations, but they shall not reign over thee. The Church considers this abomination to be God's revelation, that it is from God. For such a wording, one should actually be prosecuted. But in reality, it is not they who are prosecuted, but those who dare to say that this is all an abomination. Following the subject, I can say that Lev Nikolaevich Tolstoy wrote a very good work, Polite Christianity. Why Christian peoples in general, and especially the Russian people, are now in a dire situation, where he exposed the falsity of Christian teaching, not the teaching of Jesus Christ himself, but precisely the teaching of the Church.
Okay, so let me skim through this, just get some random stuff. Anyways, go
No
ahead.
health care. All this is doomed. Moreover, the fact that the medical treatment of man belongs to different fields of medicine is kaleidoscopic nonsense. Look, we have doctors for the eyes, doctors for the ears, doctors for the heart, doctors for the teeth, doctors for something else, and each doctor is responsible for some part of a person. But doctors do not know the person as a whole, as a holistic organism. After all, a person functions as a whole and not partially. Such a separate study could take place if each separate part of man functions separately and independently of the other parts. But in practice, in life, hardly anyone will argue that all parts of the human body are interconnected and interdependent in a strict, determined way. But it is precisely these connections that are not studied as a whole, so that the whole organism is known as a whole. All doctors around the world only specialize in different parts of the human body. But the treatment of a person and the preservation of his health should be approached from a holistic standpoint. Here is the principle of divide, pit, and conquer, on the example of medicine and the fifth priority. And what do we have to understand in this case? Is a person material? Yes, he is material. Does he possess an informational state? Yes, he does. And a person has a matrix measure, which determines the state of a person's matter and information. All diseases come from the mismatch of the measure matrix of a person with the measure matrix of God. When a person does not live in harmony with God, then his particular measure is violated. All this is reflected in the material carrier, the human body, in the form of diseases. There is something else that should be said concerning the fifth priority, in particular about medicine. We've already said that in creation, there is a concept of thin, subtle matter in invisible worlds. That is matter, the frequency indicators of which are so high that the human eye is not able to catch them. We also said that in creation, information is objective and is recorded on matter, both coarse matter.
Okay, so this is pretty. We're getting pretty far out. But I'm not. By the way, William, I'm not able to rotate whatever weird stuff going on my PDF, so we can.
Okay, send it to me. Email it to me. I'll do it.
Okay, I'll just send it to you. Okay, so I don't know if you want to say anything about.
No, I'm just listening.
But what's any response?
Do you want to comment on it?
Well, so basically, so the basic component. So again, we're looking at, if you imagine that, say, all the, really, and people with some actual knowledge, power in the United States, got together and say, we have to save this country, but we have to go to the furthest, this is we're not dividing, the disciplines, right? We're not, separating out. We're looking at everything. And so this is, application human biofield, interconnect. It's taking all the quote unquote negative research and applying it in a positive way. And what they did come up with is they said that it's, well, you could call it religious, spiritual, whatever, but it's completely sort of extrapolated out of this very interconnected, very holistic, way. And who knows? I'm not, claiming to be an expert, but what is really, we hit the stuff on the egregores, because it's what's really fascinating about that is, you don't, this material on the egregores and stuff is, you won't get anywhere else. And it really, it's very, pertinent to see like all this scientific stuff we've been talking about applied to like occult phenomena, but not applied like this is, it's completely part of this sort of integrated worldview. That takes everything from every, science, this, that. But I guess the conception of social safety is based on, that's why it's not national, it's social. It's the social, from a family to the community to a village to a city. But, it's the conception means the conceptual model is considered the highest level. So you have a conception of governance. If you think about it, I mean, they talk about this idea of measure as being space-time, being sort of a confusion of this idea of measure as being, encoded as sort of the they go back to like Egypt. I'm not going to, I'll just show some clips on that, but they go back and they say how this particular way of understanding the world has been hidden and has been, removed basically, and sort of within this process of misdirection.
Sorry about that. I hit the wrong button. That was my mistake.
Oh, okay.
That was my mistake.
I thought it was the Grays, man.
It might be. We should blame it on it. I mean, it'll make a much better story, right?
Yeah. Well, so what I was talking about is the tree of cognition. So again, what's so fascinating about this is we have an application of all these levels of understanding, all this research, right, from people that have the knowledge, accessibility, but applied in a positive way to liberate humanity, not to bind humanity. So there's a lot of great things. So one of their principles, the basis is called the tree of cognition, which is a cool principle. Like I said, this show is going to be mostly just skimming over some of this material, but the tree of cognition, the soil is objective reality and the texts of past ages. So the tree of cognition, objective reality, right? The world we live in here now, and the text, whatever, philosophical tradition. Okay. The roots are the methodology of cognition. The methodology of cognition. That's the roots. The trunk is sufficiently general in terms of universality of application, theory of governance. The trunk application. It's not just, you're not just governing, it's a universal, right? In a certain way. The crown is applied to the branches of science and their fruits. Again, this is a tree. The boundary of the tree, of the trunk in each of the branches, is a meteorology. The study on how the conceptual apparatus of the branch of science, its abstractions, etc., is connected with objective reality. So I said, this is very deep and complex, but think about that. So any branch of science, you're also, subjecting it to this, right? Or being very clear of how any branch of science, it's a conceptual apparatus connected with objective reality. Is this connected to reality? Okay. The problem, if the problem of meteorology is solved, there is no division into humanities and natural science. All is natural. So it's inclusive, right? So you're not even separating out any of these things. They're just, of course, different aspects, but it shows the relationality of this. So let's just go through. This is just something I put together. So it's material. So we have types of power. We have conception. So for them, the conceptual power is the primary power. This is actually gaining the real conceptual knowledge and it's systemic understandings, right? This is the true power. Then they have, but it trickles down according to their model. Conceptual power to ideological power, legislative power, executive power, judicial power. But each one of these is downstepping, right? But it's all based on this. So think of the Constitution as operating. You go to the next one.
Okay, hold on. I just finished the other one. Let's do that. I hope. No, I got to redo these slides. Oh my gosh. Okay. Let me bring up the egregore one because I just finished that. Now I got to go through the other one. Let's see. Slides.
What's really cool about this, when I came out of this stuff, you can really take this cybernetic stuff and really apply it with some type of clarity and actually get some nice benefits, and also understand. It creates like a really fundamental understanding of the whole kind of system overgrid with, material you're not going to find. You'll get these. Okay, you got leaked. The document we went over. This is where they're applying this to quote unquote occult spiritual phenomena within this. Again, we're talking about very highly skilled, reputed, pragmatic people, right?
Skilled scientists,
but all different kinds of disciplines. So this is from their stuff. So you can go ahead and read this.
Well, I'm busy. Please read it.
Okay. Speaking of the origin of the word egregore, well, let me just describe egregore, and we're sort of skipping a step to get to this. But
okay, well, we'll pop back. We'll pop back and forth because
So let me ground this more sufficiently. So everything we covered, this particular movement we're going to use this as a lens to also invert and sort of create a way to look past or beyond the stuff, but just to get a really super interesting, stream of knowledge and a very different worldview. So to me, this represents sort of the uniquely, we started the whole series and talked about Slavic, kind of in between East and West, very unique people, with very different perspectives that don't fit into these normal categories. They cut across. You could say they cut across, the empirical, scientific nature, rational nature of the West, and maybe the mystical, contemplative East. Create a different type of synthesis. So we're not going to probably get into all this material, but basically the human biofield I started talking about. So they go through all this data and show how the human biofield is actually constructed, how it's detected. And as part of this model, so they include these, we call non-physical entities, right? These are energetic entities. So egregore, well, you know what an egregore is.
Yeah, it's like a something that's created through spiritual or mental power, right?
It's a
charge. Yeah, sorry.
So we're going to say this some stuff has come up on egregores. I read a whole book on the egregores, right? But it had a lot of BS in it. Okay. There's a lot of misinformation. But there's some very interesting things. So you can let's just go through this and
the other one's ready too. If you want to switch back to the other slides.
Well, no, we just hit this. Well, let me just start the egregore. Okay. So the origin of the word egregore, there are several variants from the word aggregate, which means a connection into one whole of dissimilar or homogeneous parts. The French word is aigrette, which means a feather or a bunch of feathers sticking up that adorn a woman's headdress or hairstyle. Actually, kind of interesting. Okay, next slide. You can go on this one.
Let's go. There you go.
So this is the biofield model where, so stuff like picture. So we are, we potentially have access. We are part of the universe, or where they, say God or whatever you call it. So, but this is the biofield and information, or just not even that level, information coming in and flowing out of us, right? So we're part of this whole interconnected energetic process, and that's the human being, right? And this is the bioenergetic field, mental field, and all this, which is talked about occult esoteric literature. Here it's coming from the scientific perspective, or quote unquote. So go ahead, next slide. You can read this.
A person emits biofields. Oscillations are always a process of the trinity of MIM.
It's matter information measure.
Matter information measure. Through his biofields, a person perceives everything at once. The sense of measure is a sense like all other human senses.
So I may say this: measure to them. This is where it gets super deep. We're not going to go into it. This is it's not like time, space, matter, right? For them, it's matter, information, and measure. But measure is there's no time, right? This is inclusive of temporal processes. So they talk about the misdirection that started in Babylon, ancient Egypt, etc. But anyways, we'll proceed. But that's what MIM is: matter, information, measure.
Gotcha.
Okay.
The biocarrier of man's soul in creation is 1, the substance of his biomass, 2, natural physical fields emitted by his biomass in the process of his life. But we do not know the entire plurality of fields. We know that a sensitivity, a resolution, and ability of discernment and recognition by the human organism, that is the biogenic perception of the world, is higher than that of the means of scientific technological perception of the world.
Yeah. So one of their premises of this, so we'll say, they have there's a religious, well, not religious for that. This is, reality, whatever, within this model. So we have a soul, right? And there is this sort of universal, there's a creator, or whatever you want to call it. But we have a biomass. Again, we saw that image. So, it's 3 to basically 6 feet outside of you. There's this whole energetic field. So, but in a sense, one level with this full array of ourselves, we're perceiving everything, right? But the whole thing is we don't even know this exists, right? We don't necessarily are not aware that we have this energetic field or these different modes of potential perception, right? So again, we're talking about 100 years of ESP research being sort of put into this system, you know what I mean? So it gives away, again, a sort of positive outlook. But the whole thing they say is that the actual natural order, the actual abilities of a human being is beyond any scientific instrument, beyond ultimately, if you're able to, connect with the highest principles, even whatever the technological force or field, it's beyond that, far beyond that. So, okay. So we actually have an ability to really perceive in a much higher level than our instruments, even in a much greater degree of accuracy. Okay, you can go ahead.
Next one.
Mm-hmm.
Sensors detect pressure, temperature, battery voltage, etc. Amplifiers amplify signal. Converters convert signal into digital form. Computer processing processes the signal. Converter processed signal. Registers process signal.
Keep going.
Thus, the organism as a whole and its elemental base cells possess a much more subtle structure, a more complex organization than the technological base of science. Two, unlike devices, the hierarchy of the structures of a living person is complete and continuous, from the physical vacuum in which physical fields pass along, through atoms and chemical compounds, specific cells that form body tissues and organ systems, up to man himself and society as a whole. In other words, every kind of matter and aggregate states of matter are present in man.
Keep going.
And many natural fields, frequency ranges, direction of polarization of fields, code systems objectively existing in creation are in principle closed for technological perception due to the incompleteness of the hierarchy of structures and of technical means, low sensitivity of sensors, low resolution, low ability of discernment and recognition. That is, due to the crudeness of technical means of converting information, distorting and losing it in the transition from one material carrier to another.
So what we have is you could say the most extreme pure science cybernetic system going across the other side. You know what I mean? So we're looking at, again, that's why, set up for this. But so they're talking about code systems and they're saying that in essence, we have an ability, and we'll get into what this is. You can see though, it is science. It's not just kind of hippie new age meandering. But basically, so there's what we have in our own natural biofield potentiality, biofield sensitivity is beyond anything in the scientific world. Okay, it's beyond any level of technology ultimately to control. That is, if you have, you're able to access that and you get, develop the clarity or connection. Does that make sense? So
Yes,
obviously most people are not on this level, but we have that. But this is very important to see also how these systems that are being imposed on us have their flaws and weaknesses, right? So we tend to think, oh, they're taking over everything. It's everything. We're under surveillance all the time. There's 5G, 6G. There's this, that. It creates almost a sense of incapacity. But yet, according to this, within the natural fields, frequencies of creation, so all the technological means have these basically 4 fundamental flaws that will always be there. No matter what, technology will not surpass this. Okay. Go ahead. Next one.
This is the Carillion pictures, right? Or the energy auras.
So you look, as you can see that picture, and this is it's a specific type of taking light in, right? These are not, you're not running some effects program. It's not like, say, I'm playing guitar and I'm running my guitar through a tape delay and a big distortion pedal and, and sampling it, resampling it. This is just, Carillion photography was analog, right? You've got a film, light, and you're getting certain spectra of the frequency. So these are, I mean, so these are real photographs. You know, I mean, there's not what you know. What I'm saying, like, it's a
Right.
particular.
Right.
Let's say anything about that.
Do you want me to read it?
Yep, got it.
Our entire culture does not teach our children to consciously and according to the life consistent reason govern their own sensitivity, resolution, ability of discernment, and recognition. In addition, culture does not teach children to distinguish between different cultures of world perception and thinking, and cultivate in themselves a certain culture of thinking and a discipline of internal and external behavior.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. In society, technology takes domination over an ignorant or a pervertedly educated person.
Keep going.
Many processes of energetic informational exchange between every person and creation objectively flow beyond direct conscious perception by people to outside of the technological perception base of science. But the objective non-existence of something and the impossibility of perceiving it directly or indirectly are not the same things. They are different things.
So that's important to note, right? So we're going into egregores. We're going into technically non-physical entities, right? In this presentation, but so energetic informational exchange. So again, this is a cybernetic. We information, the matter information measure thing is very complex, and I'm not going to even try to go into that. It's a radical conceptual we're working. But anyways, so one of the things is the information. It's this, information is any input you're having, right? So this is the information, and these are processes. So information is any form of energy, right? Information, you experience something comes into your field of consciousness. It is a type of information, whatever it may be, right? Information in the cybernetic sense, it could be anything. But these things, again, beyond conscious perception by people, how many things happen beyond? Look at, we were talking about astral world, right? That's
Right.
how many of, if some people, may be able to see what's going on energetic, you call astral, egregoric planes, right? And this, you don't think if this is there that people, they're not aware of this and applying it consciously to a certain degree, right? But also outside technological perception. So it's saying that parts of you will never be dominated, controlled, no matter what technology is invented, no matter what technology is created. There's something beyond that. And then just again saying that, but the objective non-existence of something, that means that I think everything is material, right? I don't see any objective thing. What does that mean? It doesn't exist.
Right.
I don't believe in cell phone. I think cell phones don't exist. Well,
Right.
How do cell phones? We don't
Right.
see anything. It's
Something's
invisible.
happening. I don't think my microwave really works. I don't think it really heats anything up. I don't
But
see it. I don't see
it's
it
magic.
Yeah. I think it spins. I think the slow spinning and the light is what works. It's not the microwaves.
But imagine, when you literally don't. I mean, like this is a cell phone. It's running on an invisible frequency where I'm in this frequency spectrum, right? But also, again, my biofield. This something comes into your biofield when these are not. You don't have to believe it, but if you. I'm just this. This is where I end. I end right here.
The pure materialist.
I live hard, and I got a lot of money. I party hard. I do anything I want, and I'll kill people. I'll rob. I'll fornicate. I'll do everything because this is just it. It's my skin sack. This is what I live in. Okay, obviously,
there's only 5 senses, right?
I don't necessarily believe
Darwin.
that.
I know.
Obviously, I don't believe that at all.
You're trying to make a point. I know.
No, of course, I'm not like covered in tattoos. I mean, obviously, anything I'm saying is beyond that. But on one level, well, okay, my eyes, my ears, I don't see anything beyond that. But does it mean that there's not a biofield? Does it mean that there's not possible that something is going on with non-physical entities, things, spiritual, negative spiritual forces, positive spiritual forces? Does it mean that they don't exist because it's not objective non-existence and the impossibility of perceiving it directly or indirectly. So there's certain things with the normal five senses, they're impossible to perceive. You cannot perceive maybe certain spiritual things, whatever you want to call it, different energetic, higher resonance levels. Your normal five senses are not going to see it. But wait,
Right.
you get a bad vibe about someone. Well, you're
Right.
perceiving it. That's the difference.
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, it turns out that all that stuff, like the hippies say, man, I like your aura or something, they may really be perceiving it, maybe not on a material thing, but on some other sense, some other sensory thing. Or people get a vibe off of different people, right? So who's to say that that's false? Who's to say that, those sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth senses don't exist?
Well, and one of the things is the clarity. You go back to the thing, they have very, idea of this discipline of, governance, right? Governance is also self-regulation, control, or also clear awareness, right? Clear awareness of what information is. Because there's a thing of, say, like paranoia, right? Paranoia. So that's something where you're generating all this fear over something or other. But that's, well, this is just my completely, just whatever, speculative, just throwing a frisbee into the California sky, see where it lands. But to me, I think what people call paranoia, yes, people get paranoid. They go through that. But I think there's a sense there. There is a type of sensitivity you can get to situations of people around you. And a lot of times that will be encoded into paranoia. And
Right.
and because you're blocked and you're just going to generate, and your mind will start bouncing off itself because you can't accept that you're having a different type of perception, or, you know what I mean? Whatever. So I think what I'm trying to say is certain types of higher senses can be encoded with, like, say, media input, social input. You know what I mean? Like,
I think
you know what I
so.
mean? Like certain types of perception. Like you look at like horror movies or something. Maybe there's certain types of spiritual perception, but suddenly they become associated with fear. Look how many like anti-church things you see in horror movies. The cross, the evil, the images. Boom, that's your language connection, right? Creating negative things, or so many just different higher states. So again, impossibly of perceiving it directly or indirectly are not the same things. Are not the same things. Things meaning extant entities, right? We're looking at very strict, das Dingen, the thing, what's arising, as itself, not as, you're imagining,
Right.
constructing it. Okay, you go on.
Something outside yourself, like a perception.
Yeah.
In relation to the study of mental, psychic, and nervous activity, the conclusion from the aforementioned is the following. If technology is crude and more primitive than man and society, then the best tool for understanding man is man himself and society. As one ancient Greek philosopher said, man is the measure of all things. Technology and computer processing may only be of a temporary interest. These studies are of interest primarily to the zombifiers of mankind, the result of which will be the death of mankind in general for everyone. Bio-robotization.
This is from 1992.
Wow.
So, yeah. And zombify. So, again, I mean, in a certain way, like you get shut off an efflorescence, right? Efflorescence,
Right.
just arising from this, people that are at the top in certain levels, and like this, then, but they started this project, and this is what they came up with, through this research project. But technology, computer processing may be only of temporary interest. So if technology is, so there's, like I said, this is extremely dense material, but the study of mental, psychic, and nervous activity. So by nervous activity, we mean the nervous system, right? Again, Pavlov was a physiologist. He's a physiologist, not a neurologist, right? A lot of this stuff is in the physiological, glandular, operation of the nervous system, not just in the brain. You're not saying brain waves aren't important, like the like betas. A lot of people, if you go into sort of a high beta activity brain state, you're going to have lots of, it's almost like lots of noise, stress, anxiety, lots of inner talking, lots of just, everything is like, it's, or else, you can have a clear beta stage where you're totally hyper focused, that, you're playing football. That's a beta. Beta doesn't have to be like that, but that's a particular mental frequency, right? That's a brain, but there's much more than that. So, anyways, mental, psychic, and nervous activity. These are all part of us, right? You can't see my thoughts. You can't see what I'm feeling. You can maybe think I'm showing an emotion, but how many emotions are fake? That's what acting is, right?
Right.
Unless you're a method actor, Marilyn Monroe. But so, the best tool for understanding man is man himself in society. So this is using the actual arising. And then going again, these studies are interest primarily to the zombifiers of mankind. And they are the reason sort of this was put together. Again, we're talking how many years ago? Early 90s.
All right, 30 years ago, 35, 40.
These studies, the result of which will be the death of mankind in general, and for everybody, biorobotization. So even in general, many may die, but those that are left are going to be biorobots. They're going to be integrated into the technological system. Okay, the next one if you want.
All right, it's like the full beast system, full revelation. Living people, like the rest of nature, emit pan-natural fields, energy, and information according to the measure that predetermines the existence of each and every living being. The set of biofields of biospheric organic origin is usually called a biofield. A person feels, senses, and perceives the world not only with his organs, built from the substance of his biomass, but also through the pan-natural fields inherent to his organism. To put it differently, a person perceives information through his biofield from the entire creation.
Okay, keep going.
If a certain plurality of people has similar parameters of their energetics, biofields, vibrations, list of fields, frequencies of these fields, polarization, etc.
Dude, what's wild about this? You have actual. We're not. This is whatever they said. The telepathy experiment, 1989, synthetic hypnosis. Oh, it failed. Like, you know what I mean? Like directly from that document we talked about. Like when something's getting too close, you discredit it completely.
Right, you have to. Yeah.
But
I think the CIA did that too. Like, this is from a Soviet kind of view.
But they have energetic. I remember just one other quote from that document. It's like, is that mankind must not abuse this knowledge. You know what I mean? Tell the United States. I forget the exact quote. Remember from that document, some Russian guys said, do not do these experiments, or if you go into this experiments, they're saying, I mean, do not open up the demonic. Don't go into the demonic. This is a demonic. So this is the right. So they have lists of fields for even demonic entities. They're not. This is going into a very weird. Not weird, right? Because it's to really grasp it is quite complex. It's not. This is not. Whatever. It's not superficial, but it's also not. It's just rigorous. So,
yeah,
but
it's like intellectualizes like all the kind of beliefs, kind of mythological beliefs about the human world and the spiritual world in some way. Like, it's kind of.
So this is what this is about, actually. So let's just erase. No, occult, or occult. The actual meaning of word occult, of course, is to hide. It's like the sun was occulted by a cloud. I'm going to occult what I said previously about, say, actual spiritual, non-physical entities. This is talking about how to create psychic energetic formations using masses of people. So this is what we went through that earlier stuff on Marxism. They were alluding to. It's the consciousness of the people. This is so these. Well, we'll get into what egregores are, but we're talking about how to take 100,000 people, right, and use their energy to create a non-physical bioenergetic egregore, which is an entity which can be directed or moved around with. So this is a So this doesn't even have to go into, we're not talking even demonology. We're talking about actual how this is constructed. So has parameters of their energetics. So, but it also will start just like any sympathetic resonance. Very simply, we can see this. Okay, walk into, so this stuff, even though you can say this, wow, man, this is so far out. No, it's in our direct immediate experience. Going back to that thing about what we perceive, what we let ourselves perceive. And there's nothing weird about it. It's just clarifying, right? You go to a football game, you walk into a Kiss concert, you walk into a Slayer concert, you go to you go to a dive bar in the hood, you go to a opera performance at Carnegie Hall.
Right.
Not just physical space. You're gonna feel different. There's a very different collective space. There's a human resonant feel, right? To a certain degree. And you may, especially if you're not aware of it, right? If you go to a certain setting that you're not there, you'll feel like don't feel comfortable here. Well, you're not thinking that. You're seeing that you're not congruent with this, biofield that's there. But the thing is that so what I'm saying is like you get a vibe. Like if you think of any examples, like think of a party, everything's going great, then suddenly one person comes in, the whole atmosphere changes.
Right.
And and we can go back and justify it with this or that, but it's actually, if you catch it, there's going to be a feeling, there's going to be a shift in the atmosphere. You could call it an egregoric field, which is it's not an entity. It's not, it's not, but it's there. It's a shared field. I'm just going to, you want to finish this slide and I'll be right
Then
back.
the biofield emission of the same information by many people generates an energetic informational system on field carriers, which is in the occult sciences are called egregores.
So field carriers. So it's pretty cool, right? So we're taking cybernetics, normal mainstream science, and applying it to occult phenomena, but not in a, ghost hunters, whatever, one of those TV shows.
Guys, we are getting close to the end. By the way, you can find Hans Uter at his website, hansuter.com, www.hansuter.com. You can find me on Patreon. I post a lot of these shows without ads on Patreon. I also have a website, WilliamJimRamseyInvestigates.com. And then if you found the podcast, I'm streaming mostly on Rumble now and on X. A lot of people listen to this on X. We have about 75 listeners on X. So you can Rumble. I'm pretty much off of YouTube forever. I don't think I'll ever stay there. It's just a children's joke site. It doesn't have that kind of frontier element that the early internet used to have. It's just I don't need something to be like Nanny stated terrible. Anyway, Hans is back. So we've made it. I made it to the egregore. So it's basically like all the auras come together and create some thought form.
It's psychic energy too, right? And this can come in, provisional. Like I said, you see atmosphere, whatever, but this can also be directed. It can also be, just keep going. So this is again from this thing.
An idea. There's the egregore for people who are not watching this live. And the ideas go up. My idea.
So you think it's your idea? It's
Right.
coming in collectively. Okay, you can go ahead.
Egregores are classified according to the incoming into them information, according to the features of the energy of the people connected to this egregore, according to the features of the energy potential, according to the organization of governance over this egregore.
So they talk about matrix energy, frequency mapping, and controlling. So these are like psychic forces. So it's quite, again, and these are not people that are, whatever. They're not, floating around on a magic carpet. This is a level of clear understanding from all this research and work, right? But it is very much in the cybernetics. They're using cybernetics as the guiding principles of this. So we can, maybe you can just hit a couple more of those, but we can.
And people are close in terms of the parameters of their energetics, despite the peculiarities of these parameters. These parameters are conditioned by genetics, physiology, general emotional structure, type of psyche, mood at a certain point in time or at a time interval. Therefore, in the formation of human egregores, the informational characteristics or peculiarities of people in the community of people are more significant, but not energy compatibility, which is initially determined by the belonging to a people, race, or humanity. Next one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sensors detect pressure, temperature, battery voltage, etc. Amplifiers amplify signal. Converters convert signal into digital form. Computer processing processes the signal. Converter converts process signal. Register registers process signal.
Yeah. Okay. So, go ahead.
I don't know.
Did I just repeat?
It
Is
seemed
that
like that was
the end of it?
deja vu all over again.
Oh my gosh! I had a lot of weird. Is that the whole thing?
No, you still
Okay.
There's the human egregore, biospheric egregore, planetary egregore, galaxy egregore, creation egregore. So it's not just the human egregore creation, it's the whole spiritual manifestation of the egregores all throughout creation, right?
Yep.
Mutually hierarchical. In the energy or material, because energy is a transitional form of matter, interesting, relation, people generate egregores in the same way as power plants and devices connected to the network. Interesting. In terms of information, people generate an egregore in the same way as many computers connected.
Oh, I think it's double. Is it double?
Okay, sorry. The measure of an egregore is its algorithmics of transformation of information in the process of egregorial governance over those who form this egregore. This algorithmics manifests itself in the statistics of mass behavior.
So, what's interesting, we never got in that document to go through like the propaganda, these kind of other things, right? Mass formation. But this is, talking about applying all this together, creating mass consciousness things. Just think about these concerts and stuff like that. And again, we can break this down in a lot of detail, but you can see that this is,
it's almost like occult powers or something like that.
Yeah, but it's occult powers put within there, and they're also showing how these powers have been used and are used, right? But
what
mostly,
if the COVID propaganda was a gigantic egregore creation with everybody thinking the same thing at the same time? Mass formation psychosis. What if they created a huge psychosis egregore? Like, that would be incredible. Like, that would talk about black magic, like planetary black magic.
Yeah. So, and of course, they don't necessarily use those terms, but they're showing how also, these things are and can be organized also, right? And so in algorithmics, I mean, this shows that there's a level of this cybernetics, the calculation, the governance, the input, system information, output, etc. Right? We just maybe do one or two more of these, and I'll just kind of.
It's almost like this. All this stuff like predates everything that went down with the Great Reset and COVID, like this creation, but in a black magic way, like not for positive change. Like maybe like what about egregore creation in a church or in a temple, like a Buddhist temple, people meditating. What if they're creating positive egregores to oversee it? And then maybe that's what you feel when you go into a church that's like a real church where people are spending a lot of time there praying or something, is you're walking into a kind of a cleansed environment.
Yeah. And the thing is that, we have some of these senses, right? Part of it is that it's put on a very low threshold of your conscious information registration, right?
Right.
Depending on, what state of mind you're in, right? If you go in a very calm mind, you go in there with this sense of like, I'm walking into this sacred place. I'm going to have this particular mindset and be very present and open and aware. You're going to have a different, type of experience. But part of it is that that there's things that are really they're blocked. We just simply put, we have the framing. It's called the reticular activating system of our consciousness. It's an integrative apparatus, which a lot of the material on this has been disappeared, right? But this is what we perceive consciously. This is the framing of reality that is allowed into our consciousness. It's very fluid. It's not something that's it can be manipulated. You can change what information is coming into you or how you're perceiving it, how you're filtering it, what you see is actually happening and what is just completely disregarded or ignored, right? This is watching a film can do it. You can consciously change it. But most of the time, this framing of consciousness is unconscious, right? And this is also how, like say you go to you watch a really, something very dark, right? How do people get brought into some of these things, right? Some of these situations, their lives, they get thrown off into very, very extremely dark places. Why? Because every step they took, they're disregarding certain things they're having, or they're reframing it. I'm just an example. Say, you're hanging out with your metalhead friends and you're meeting in the forest, and then then you start out, we're drinking, and then Johnny, the charismatic guy that's a couple years older. That's what the CIA planned. No, I'm just kidding. But he says, well, we'll have this little drink. We'll celebrate nature, and let's, or then they'll do like, let's play strip poker. Imagine this over time, but you're like, wow, these people are so cool, and I don't get along with anyone else at school, but I'm part of this group, and this is our leader. Little laced drink. You get some hallucinogen, you start having maybe some sexual stuff comes up, maybe some violent killing stuff comes up, animals, some then ritual, and next thing you know, everything you disregarded, you're part of a full-blown, you're into it, and you just drifted through it. But because why? Your consciousness, the filter, right? Your reticular activating system filter is focused on social belonging, being part of this group. It's really important to me. I hate my parents. I hate my teachers, but I love this, Johnny. I'm just making this up.
No, but it sounds very familiar. Like it's almost like urban myth story. That's how it goes. I just met these new people and they accepted me. The guy who's in, he doesn't know the word love bombing or whatever, and they just really reached out to me and met me, and we had some good times. And next thing you know, that guy's either a full blown occultist or something.
But now let's add this egregore thing with a more clear understanding, and I'm sure you probably talked about this. And this, like I said, there's a couple books I saw that didn't really, it's very abstract, right? So we're talking about something that's pretty far out, right, for most people. But
I think so.
But this is a delineation and a very clear understanding. And these people were using they're aware of it. And it's very clearly delineated within a perceptual system, which is based on also opening up these different channels of information, gaining a much clearer understanding of yourself, right? Your own capacities, capabilities, and for them, of course, it's really based on this type of discipline of, of understanding, emotional, control, but then also, connecting with, you could say they call creation or the higher egregore thing. But imagine that same analogy I just made up. This guy's able to create. He doesn't necessarily have to know exactly what he's doing, but he knows he can take the psychic energy of the people doing this ritual and start building this energy formation. It's an entity that can be directed, right? I mean, it's not necessarily autonomous, but it can be directed. It's being formed, and then that entity will communicate to the people. It will they have that one slide. They put an idea in your head. You think it's your idea. No, it's coming from the egregore that you've entered into, right? Or that is influencing you. So I guess you can go ahead and you just do maybe a couple more of these.
I've got about 15 more minutes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, that's it. We can just leave the egregore thing there. I just thought you can just skim through the slides real quick, see if anything pops out.
Algorithmics is a set of algorithms in the psyche or in the egregore, strengthened with all might according to his glorious power unto all patience and long suffering with joy and joyfulness. Isn't that Paul? If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, that's Christ. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. That's what is that? Romans. I think that's the one. Even all tyrants reference. Hitler, I think, even referenced that biblical phrase. An egregore is a biofield structure that is material and it cannot exist without people. An egregore carries in itself certain information which is measured and ordered in accordance with the measure. But this is not a jumble of different people, but an egregore is determined by certain informational content when the information and algorithms of many people coincide. How many slides do you have on this one?
Well, we could just, we just leave it there. So it's pretty interesting, but yeah, we'll just leave it there.
Okay.
Yeah,
this is where we made it to.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so that's just an introduction to this, conception of social safety. Just a pretty, the thing is, like I said, there's a lot here. Maybe just bring up that other thing real quick. That's just more general, like systems of power. So I can just go through this. I won't. So it's types of power: conceptual power, ideological power, legislative power, executive power, judicial power. Continue.
Environment, feedback line, result, feed forward line. Right. So
this is like a cybernetic. This is applying like cybernetic systems, network theory. It's just kind of how this stuff works. You keep going. It's just you can see the image. The environment is the you can see the continent. Keep going. Harmony, catastrophe.
Right. HHEG. What's that?
Human heart energetic hierarchical energetic grid. Environment. So we have the subject of government, object of government. So this is applying cybernetic computer system theory. The thing is, a lot of these things it does encompass like biological processes, right? So governance is not only control, but it's the directioning. Go ahead. I said some of this is kind of complex. That's
environment, feedback line, HHEG, sight, hearing, smell, feed forward, feedback, structure of object governance, object of governance.
So it's got like an economy. So this is this goes through, it's sort of the Soviet. This is a Soviet distinction methodology that was used for their own system of governance, and so like I said, this is we'll just skip that.
Yep.
Okay.
Kind of the same stuff. Vector of goals, vector of states.
Yeah.
Seize the riches of Russia. Russia should not understand. All Russians must die.
Okay, this is so important. Governance always implies a subjective choice of a goal, a vector of goals. Man makes his subjective choice among a polarity of objective possible variants of process development. So this is subjective choice of a goal, a vector of goals. Man makes his subjective choice among a polarity of objective possible variants of process development. So this is like I said, this probably far afield. I just wanted to share this information, but this goes from our subjective space, right? How to take in all the information, how to generate this governance, right, in ourselves, but then also to have that connected with the whole of life, right? Our own biofields, our own family, etc. Maybe just hit a couple more of these, and then we'll.
Do you want to read that?
Okay, and anyways, so one, detecting a factor of the environment which impacts the system and which the intellect collides with among a huge diversity of processes in creation. 2, forming a stereotype, templates, habits, skills in order to discern that factor in the future. 3, forming a vector of governance goals, considering this factor and integrating this vector into the general vector of one's ruling governance. for forming an objective function of governance conception in order to solve a problem of achieving stability and future predictability of an object's behavior. Okay, it goes on and on, so we'll leave it there. But this is quite a interesting take. I mean, you're welcome just to skim through some of those, see if anything
Okay,
pops
let's see
out
what
at you.
else. I mean, it's just like more vectors. Entire function of governance means circulation of information and transformation of information in the process of governance. Environment kind of loops, feed forward line, feedback line, result harmony or catastrophe. I feel like it's catastrophe these days. Strong maneuvers, different graphs,
Yeah,
balancing, clouds. Is that an egregore creation?
well, they talk a lot about that. So this is the the different fields: humanity, creation, biosphere, and technosphere. These are all these different intersecting
The
realms.
technosphere is real. There's no question about it.
So like I said, this gets deep. So look at this. It gets quite. So we could just. So this is like a basically people are just listing. This is a hierarchy of structures. Like I said, this is a vast thing here. It's quite interesting. So we've got a few few minutes here. So maybe I'll just.
Do you want to explain this?
I think I may have a video. Hold on. Let's see, I'm just trying to pull up. You're not hearing that video, right?
I am not hearing it.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm not.
I would have to bring it up for the sound to play.
Okay, so here's just a little bit from that general guy. Again, these were like kind of the, the clearest analogy I can think of is, when the overthrow of the Shah of Iran, right? So it was basically a cassette tape overthrow. You're familiar with that, right? So the Shah of Iran, I mean, when they had the Iranian Revolution was done through material passed out, by Xerox mimeographed, flyers and by, and so I'm going to go ahead and share the video if you want to. Is that
show it. If anybody has any questions for Hans, please.
Yeah,
you can ask him on Rumble. Let's bring up that.
Okay.
Of global historical process, which we will now explore on the basis of the knowledge we refreshed in the previous lecture. There exist two views on the emergence of biological species. It is well known that a large number of living organisms disappeared. For instance, dinosaurs, pterodactyls, and so on. But not a single case of the emergence of new biological species has been recorded. Why?
So that's kind of, we talked about that.
What's he saying? The reason no biological species came up is because there's weed plants or something?
No. He's,
I know, it's funny. It's just like the fact that
he's basically bashing the theory of evolution, kind of like me.
Let's recall the Trinity: matter, information, measure, and the fact that all processes in the universe are oscillatory, and these oscillations are very diverse. One should also know that the chromosomal apparatus is an oscillatory system, X chromosome and Y chromosome, and this oscillatory system can emit and perceive oscillations. If there turns up a source of oscillations which impacts the chromosomal apparatus and contains an information code, then these oscillations can cause a transformation of the cells of the chromosomal apparatus. Here is an example from our life. Many people can't bear the sound of iron rubbed against glass or a knife against a plate, as they cringe and writhe with this sound. In the same way, if there is some kind of oscillation which causes the X and Y chromosomes to writhe, then the chromosomal apparatus will change. Such an emission has to be different from other emissions of mutagenic nature, from other ordinary oscillations. This variant is more natural.
Okay, so I know that's a bit of a well, hopefully it was interesting, right? This is pretty
100%.
almost no one's ever heard of this material. It's vast. I can send you some books. And so we're talking, I mean, you're talking about chromosomal. I mean, all the stuff we talked about, that bio, parapsychology, energetic stuff. These are, again, they had access to it, but they're taking it, in a different way. But like I said, it's extremely detailed. But they're talking about, in this little thing, right? So the oscillatory nature of, and then how chromosomes and genetics can be affected with oscillatory frequency patterns, things like that. But the other implication is too that on one level we are aware of this stuff. We just have to tune into it, right? Or open to it. So yeah, any questions? Anything
Yeah,
came up?
here's one from Brandon, aka Tolkien Studies. What are Hans's thoughts on the way Michael Aquino has integrated both Hegel and Zbigniew Brzezinski? Do you know that?
To me, he's just a guy with weird eyebrows.
Yeah, I don't know. Did he integrate Hegel? I wouldn't know.
I mean, I don't, he talked, I mean, of course he had the famous paper on, technological
War.
warfare. Mind war. We could look at that, actually, and see.
We could do another show on that. Mind war I think it's from PSYOP to Mayan. I think it's called From PSYOP to Mind War, right?
Yeah. But again, like seeing that thing from the 70s, some of these things I think are kind of limited hangout almost releases, right?
Yeah. I think they have very sophisticated mind war programs. I mean, really super duper stuff.
I mean, again, and this guy, I don't know if this guy I think he probably had retired at this point. It's the same dude, the general guy.
Michael, you got it. Temple.
No, I'm just saying, no, in this.
This guy right here, I see.
The Russian general guy. He's like the opposite of Michael Aquino, right? He's but Hegel and, Brzezinski is, Brzezinski is realpolitik, and Hegel. So to be honest, like I don't know anything specific. It just maybe unless you're speaking generally about, using mind war, psi warfare, etc. So I'm sorry, I can't really. I don't know anything specific about that or any specific references. I can make up something general, you know what I mean, according to his viewpoints on psi warfare, mind warfare. But I don't know. I have not seen any of his sort of philosophical papers.
Yeah, I've read through The Coming of Darkness by Night or something like that. That was kind of like his Magic in Theory and Practice, where he talks about the history of the Templist set and all that stuff. Brian Browntown asks, so is there a resurgence of these ideas, or is it incorporated into the current plan?
So the ideas I'm talking about, I mean, this is, I really, the status of this, again, this group was formed as sort of a consortium. Really, again, with a really radical, it's looking at, just read a quote here. Governance and creation is hierarchically and ordered by levels, one of which is man, which means that man's governance is always in one way or another coordinated in one way with hierarchically higher levels of governance. And if his intentions are somehow incongruent with the hierarchical governance, they are then to the measure of incongruence, not actualized. So in one sense, you could say there's a very strong, I mean, they're really coming to, from all this research and everything they did, they come back to, you say, God, the creator, connecting with this in a very specific way. And it's not, not abstracted per se, right? It's seen as the highest principle. So Luna's saying, okay, the entire tree of knowledge is a relationship of man with creator and all holder. Through the prism of the worldview of the triunity and the theory of governance, it becomes scientifically obvious that there exists a certain supramundane reality that governs all processes taking place in creation. So in a sense, it's the ultimate total mind control, psi warfare, cybernetics, even, classic cybernetics running missile systems, satellite systems that come out the other end, right? This is the highest form of governance. So you can't, it's, ideally I would love if this stuff was part of the current plan. I mean, I do know that they, the book they were banned, right? It was the book itself was made illegal in Russia. And I know that, there's some, I think I don't know if it's exactly, supposedly, again, Putin had access to this material, whether or not he's applied it or not, I don't know. Um, it would be great if there was this amazing thing of the total well-being of the entire planet and making the best possible decisions, and from the level of the family, you know what I mean, like an entirely organically integrated creation. um, that would be wonderful, but I don't think it is right now. I think, but this is a counter. But it's also the thing is revelatory that there's a scientific thing there there's a bio thing, the education, there's non-physical entities, there's human energetics, and this stuff can be mapped and modeled. So potentially, if I can get access to material, you could even look at certain events and see are these interconnected, right? Are some kind of public whatever arising, or yeah, COVID is a great example, right? You can create an egregoric field. Basically, doesn't have to be like super mystical, like it's this giant, I think a great visual, if you want to see what an egregore looks like, look at the COVID virus pictures. It's like that. It's like something like that. Okay. Literally. I mean, but it's connected. But the thing is that people that are aware that there's this collective psychic formation, right, that's been put together, then you can direct that. You can make it larger. You can feed into it, and eventually it can almost have its own autonomy, because it can be the more and more energy. It's also an energy harvesting thing too, right? So in that level, it's quite interesting, that all these things. Um, so what I went into today is extremely very far out. You could say it's very complex. I didn't even scratch the surface. I'm not saying I believe it or disbelieve it. I just thought it was just really fascinating to see that all these things can actually, in a sense, again, the conception of social safety is really for the good of all mankind, right? But really on the, from the ground level up, right? And so, you know, I guess I'll leave it there. But I just thought it was fascinating that all this research. So you're talking about things that you're not going to hear this in U.S. government documents, right? This is
Right.
this is mapped and modeled out, algorithmically analyzed, non-physical forces, and analyzed as waveform, plasma field stuff. So
There are some interesting documents that the CIA released. I think one was from the Air Force that talked about consciousness outside the body, which was pretty incredible. Like human consciousness isn't based on the brain. Isn't that wild? Like they actually came up with in the 50s or 60s or something like that. And then they did all the steric codes type stuff. So they've talked about similar, nothing like what you were talking about, but I haven't seen that yet, but nothing was so comprehensive,
but in this case, it's still something being experimented with, right? It just this is a consolidated system, integrated system, with things that are not, you know, that are, like I said, that are invisible. But how many things that we experience, you know what I mean? So maybe, okay, I'll just leave this here, is that, um, there's a whole range of possible perception. So even what you're talking about, like the psi abilities, is being actually, psychic power is almost being like a natural human potentiality that's inherent, because we're the part of these bioinformation systems, right? We have a bioenergetic field. We're connected with all these different layers, you know. So I'll leave it there. And
Okay. We have one more to
hansunder.com.
go. One more episode. The next episode is
We can just leave it here. We can
the
just
booking.
call it.
Okay.
We
Tell people
can
where they
move
can.
on. It's up to you. I mean,
Okay. Tell people where they can find your stuff.
so hansunder.com podcast. I may go into this stuff in more detail, maybe in
And this
that
can be found on
podcast.
your podcast. The whole series can be found on your podcast.
Yep.
The Grateful Dead series can be found on your podcast. And other interviews you're doing, which is Hans Uter Investigates, Eyes Wide Open, right? That's the full title.
Yep. So
And check that out. I'll put a link to that as well. Link to your website. People can see that. Do you have any upcoming shows or musical events?
I've got my retreat thing I'm doing. So
When's that? What
that
day?
is this Saturday, Friday, Saturday. So I got a house by the lake, and you know what? If nobody comes, I'm gonna have a nice time with all the.
It'll
Now
be
I have other musicians.
Central Ohio, right? What's the name of the lake
It's a
again?
place called Buckeye Lake.
Okay, Lake.
So it's if I wouldn't necessarily come out here from if you're living in the Italian Alps, I wouldn't necessarily fly out to Buckeye Lake, Ohio. But if you're in the
If you're in the area, if you're drivable, you can go out and then you can listen to Hans play sitar, and then you can pick his brain about the Dead and Soviet cybernetics, right?
Well, it's kind of like a workshop, some music, some presentations, and there'll be other people, other instructors there.
Yeah, this is Hans's Burning Man. It's the Midwest.
It's a Burning Man. It's like, oh my gosh, yeah, it's just
What if you started like a Midwest Burning Man?
Burning Man. What should I burn? I should do like burning. What should I? Man is born.
I don't know.
Should
burning cybernetic robot. How about burn a robot?
Burning robot.
You could burn a robot and say this is the way to get away from the digital control grid, right? Like,
so you know what I could do is
that's a good idea. We should do an anti-Burning Man. Just come out and hang out and listen to the sitar. You have to check your phone at the door. You don't get any computers. You have an outhouse. You have no TV. You have to find some way to entertain yourself, music or something, and conversation or whatever, but you can't have no digital things. And you have to survive for 48 hours and see what happens.
Well, I could do like because to celebrate Kamala Harris's Indian background, right?
There you go.
So she has Indian background, and there's the legend of the goddess Sati, right? Sati, Sati. So her husband died, and so she was so grief-stricken, she threw herself on the funeral pyre to burn herself alive.
Reenact that to this day, right?
Most of the time, it's to a certain extent, yeah. I mean, it does. I mean, like. Sometimes it's actually, I don't know the extent it actually happens now today. Not too much. A lot of times in villages, and I think a lot of times involuntarily self-immolating due to the sati. I don't think most people want to set themselves on fire.
I don't think so. I don't think that's a thing. I don't think it's a good idea.
No, but I could do that with like Kamala Harris to celebrate her Indian heritage. Like just burn like a
you could do that. I think a burning robot would be good, but then you have to do something productive, almost like the Amish, where you build something that lives. So either build a barn or build a house or build something like that's the team project that brings a communal spirit. I think that's the way to go. Instead of Burning Man, where everybody's like high and it's like a bacchanalia. Do the opposite of that. You know what I mean? Anyway, great to talk with you. That is episode 9 of Advanced Soviet Research on Cybernetics, Biofield, Energetics, and Cognitive Restructuring. And expect a 10th episode sometime in the near future. So, Hans Uter, thanks so much for your time.
All right. Thank you, William, and have a wonderful evening.
You as well. Take care.